YouTube friends. I've got a little treat for all of you Mac folks out there. We have an OBS alternative that we're going to cover today. You know what? Let's get to it! Today I'm going to talk about Ecamm. There is a link down below in the description so you can check it out for yourself. It does have a 14-day free trial that gives you access to everything. So let's jump right in. Alright, so here is Ecamm Live, and it is basically just for Mac, but it doesn't really tell you a whole heck of a lot here unless you want to watch a bunch of influencer stuff. There's a little bit of a note here about stuff that's in there, and you've got features and outputs and that sort of stuff in here. So it does give you a little bit of information, and then just more influencer stuff here. So we're just going to check it out, and I'm going to tell you what you need to know. So we're going to download Ecamm Live. Obviously it automatically moves you towards some more influencer stuff. And once it's finished downloading, you just double click here and it brings a folder up, and you look in the folder and it has the app. So you can just move this app into your applications folder or whatever you want to do. I'm just going to go ahead and double click it. We'll start it up and click open, and we're going to allow, and we're going to allow, and you got to allow that, and you got to accept this. All right, so it obviously wants you to sign up, and it wants you to re-enter your email address, which is kind of weird, and then uncheck that and click sign up. And we have 14 days on our trial period. Great. We're going to click OK. It gives us a little bit of information right here. So we can set up our stream. We can set up record. We can set up present. I'm just going to X out of there. And we're going to change our camera right here. There we go. That's better. I'm all kinds of not prepared today. Not used to doing this on a Mac, but we changed that. We can record our screen and all that sort of stuff. We're going to skip that for now, and we can add a video in here. It will just go to wherever you want, and you select a video. Hello, my YouTube friends! And boom, video plays. So that's what we've got here. Camera, screen, video. Over here we've got default scene. We could show the scene window, which is already shown right here. Here we've got our sound levels, and you can see that we've got the MacBook Pro microphone already set up. We're going to drop that down, and we're going to select the proper microphone, which is this Camlink 4K. Now we have the proper microphone and our movie, which we loaded in here. So that's right there. Any sound effects or anything like that. So we could turn interview on or off using this switch. It tells you a little bit about it. So you can invite guests and that sort of stuff. We're not going to do that right now. Over here we've got our camera effects. So we can add a green screen if we like, if we have a green screen. We can select a background, and if the background is green, we can click it. You can see I've got some green here, so if I click transparent, it disappears. We can do a digital zoom and pan. Pretty cool. And we can adjust picture settings right here. So we can mirror, do black and white, add a blur effect, deinterlace, max resolution, and all that kind of stuff. Apply it to all the scenes. And we've also got picture settings here, which gives you control over the camera a little bit. And we can even load in a LUT. Very nice. This is going to link to your video comments and that sort of stuff right here. So when you're live, you'll have all that. You can link your Zoom account with this right here. And any one of these things that you don't want to use, you can just close it. Here's a camera switcher, so we could switch back and forth between the two cameras if we want. Since I'm using a laptop, I do have a camera on here. You can also use my iPhone camera if we choose, the OBS virtual camera, and some other cameras that I had loaded in here in the past. And then right here, we can zoom and pan and that sort of stuff if it's a PTZ camera. But obviously I'm not using a PTZ camera, so we're going to go ahead and close that too. We've got sound effects here that you can automatically play. And because currently I have my audio obviously going through the speakers, well, that's what we get. We can use echo cancellation if we're not using headphones, which is kind of nice. You can also click it to add it here. And we can click down here to add more sound effects if we want. Here we've got our overlays, and you can see that it automatically puts this trial watermark in there. We can add a text overlay. We can add an image overlay right here, an animated overlay. We can add a new screen share as an overlay. So if I wanted to add the screen over here, you just got to give it permissions. Okay, so now we have a screen right here, and all we have to do is go into the little box here, and we can change it to whatever display we want it to give us. We can add a border to it. We can adjust the border width, change quarter radius, add more options to zoom in and all this other stuff. It's pretty comprehensive. So we can actually set it up to capture a specific window. So we could set it up to capture Google Chrome, and there we go. I'm gonna have to exit out and come back in in order for this to work. And there we go. So now we have our window in there. And then here we have different scenes that we can create. So this is the default scene. We can create another scene. And with this scene, we can do pretty much anything we want. So we can just use the screen capture that we've already got going on right there. And you can see it says show current application, but we could pick a primary display or secondary display, whatever we want. We can zoom it in to fill the screen, zoom it out, whatever we want to do. So now if we leave that as our new scene, you can see we can switch back and forth from our new scene to our default scene, just like that. Now there's all kinds of other stuff over here that you can mess around with. You could see we can show camera effects and show sound effects. All this stuff are just these windows that we've got laying all around here. So now you've got some idea of how the scene system works. We can go up here and you've got edit, profile. So you can create multiple profiles, scenes. Gives you some different options. Sources, so we got the blank, the screen share, and the video file. You can go up into your camera and select the camera. Microphone, select the microphone. Overlays, so if we have overlays set up, you could do next overlay, previous overlay, new image overlay, that sort of stuff. We got a recording menu right here, so we could start and stop recordings. And we've got an output, which is, where you're going to output. You've got NDI access right here, deck link, virtual cam, virtual mic, all that sort of stuff. We can also go into options. We can select our stream size or stream shape, so vertical or horizontal. We can show picture in picture, vertical safe zones. We can add transitions in here. So right now there's no transition, but we can do live motion, cross dissolve, cross zoom, light raise, that sort of stuff. These are pro, but we can test them out on the trial. So there you go. That's what that looks like. Each of them are specific to whatever scene you're on. So I can put a different one on here. We can go into transitions and we'll do ripple. So now when we move from here to here, we get the ripple. And when we move from this one to this one, we get the light burst. Now if we go down here into settings, we can do general, play app, sounds, all this sort of stuff. We can modify our account information. We can set up more of our streaming information. It's a little bit easier to see here. It's nice because it gives you the ability to actually test what your speed is. We can set up all of our recording information. So our cameras, whether we want to record all of this stuff or just some of it, we can set that up. We can also record isolated audio tracks, which is nice. We can select which sort of recording we want. Pretty cool if you're going to use Ecamm for recording. It seems like a pretty dynamic setup. We can select our destination. So here is where you add where you want to stream. You could pretty much stream to anything with RTMP. All you need is your stream key. So we can go YouTube, X, Facebook, Twitch, pretty much everywhere. And they have additional destinations right here, but you don't really need any additional destinations when you've got RTMP. Here is your video settings. So default source mode is your camera and your transitions, kind of lays that out a little bit. So if you want a default transition, you can set it right here. And then some different information about some video stuff you can set up. You can tweak your audio right here. So right here, my speakers are my default, but more than likely you're going to want to use headphones. So you'd go in here and you select your headphones so it's not playing through your desktop audio. Echo cancellation if you are going to run it through your audio. You can have it capture system audio if you want when you're sharing your screen, never or all the time. So that would mean if you get a text or something like that comes through, it will sound on your stream if you have this turned on. Guest audio mute, you can map for stereo, mute movie sound, that sort of stuff, especially on your speakers. System output mix mode. Then here you could set up your interview, ring chimes for when the guests answer, auto answer for guests. In other words, if a guest comes on, it will just automatically bring them into the stream. So then you've got guest view and it shows host camera, but you can do broadcast as well. A little bit more about screen sharing right here. So whether you want to include the mouse cursor, show the mouse clicks, all the sort of normal stuff for screen sharing is right here. Shortcuts to open your live stream or your Ecamm software. So right here you've got remote control, so you can allow apps below to control Ecamm on this Mac. I'm sure there's apps that you can add. And you can add your Zoom account so that you can bring in guests using Zoom right here. And that's pretty much everything you've got in here. So you could see that this is very different than OBS in a lot of ways. This would definitely take some getting used to. Alright, so I know the question that you guys all have is, how much does Ecamm cost? Because it seems like a viable alternative for Mac users. Let's take a look. Now I think this is where Ecamm really kind of goes off the rails for me. I don't think it's a bad software, and I do think it's missing some of the things we would hope it would have, but it's really stable and very nice looking. But unfortunately, we have to deal with a stupid subscription plan, which I think if most people are like me, we're just sick of it. I want to pay a one-time fee and own the software. It's what I want, and I suspect that's what a lot of you want. It lists all of the things that you get here, 4K streaming, that sort of stuff with the Pro plan, no watermark, all that sort of stuff. But with a 14-day trial, you can go in here and check all of this stuff out and see what you think, whether it's going to work for you, whether you like it, and whether it gives you any problems. If it seems like something that's going to work for you, then maybe the cost doesn't matter, or maybe the monthly fee doesn't matter. Now, admittedly, I feel like Ecamm is kind of a confusing layout, especially if you're used to OBS and things like that. But that doesn't mean that it's not really stable and very usable for Mac users. Personally, I don't like the way that it does the Mac thing and just assumes everything, like that makes things easier. But it is what it is. I also feel like it's missing some features that I would really like to see, like masks and things like that. I also didn't find a browser source in there, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I didn't spend a whole lot of time with it, and that's mostly because of its biggest flaw, the inability to just buy a one-time license. For me, it's kind of a deal breaker. It might not be for you. If you're really struggling with OBS and you just want to get out, I think Ecamm can give you what you want. I do especially like the fact that it gives you the ability to add guests directly in the software. I think that's pretty cool, and if you have been struggling to use OBS and add guests, well, Ecamm seems like a pretty good option. If you think that Ecamm is something that you would like, there is a link down below in the description, and you can check it out for yourself on that 14-day free trial. Make your mind up for yourself. Because at the end of the day, all of these things are just my opinion. I want to know what you think, so let me know about that down below in the comments. And if you're always looking for tools, tips, and tricks to help make you a better live streamer or YouTuber, subscribe to the channel. My name is Michael Fire Jr. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.